I'm Michael Garwood. This is speeches about sabermetrics. If you've ever wondered what sabermetrics are, a lot of people talk about them as far as baseball. So if you're a big baseball fan, this is kind of uh, it's defined as the empirical analysis of baseball, and it's used as an in-game measure of a player's ability. Uh, it uses a lot of math um, to define certain things about a player's game using his stats. It's basically advanced statistics, if you will. And it was founded in 1977 by a man named Bill James. The man loved baseball. Was big into the statistics of baseball, and he wanted to figure out what each player's worth was, and he did this by defining a lot of different using a lot of different statistics. There are lots of different terms. And I'll just go over a couple, of the big ones here. War. You see, war is always used for big sabermeticians. Um, what war is it is a player's total contribution to a team. So it takes into account everything that a player does. How well he fields, how well he hits, how well he how many times he walks in a game. And it's his overall contribution to a team. So if a player has plus war, and the higher the positive war he has, it means he's a better player statistically. And if the player has negative war, that's not really a guy. There are guys on the team. It's a bad year for them. Or the Royals had a number of outfielders that had. I think Alex Gordon's WAR was about an 8, which is really good. And you're talking like a top 5, top 10 player in Major League Baseball. Um, as far as pitching, if you've ever heard the term batting average on balls in play, this is when a pitcher pitches to contact, and they're not a big strikeout thrower. It means how many what is on the balls on the balls that are made contact with. How many of these balls are actually go for hits? How many of them are recorded as outs? And just because a pitcher isn't a big strikeout thrower, doesn't mean he's not a good pitcher. He can be a good pitcher as long as he pitches to contact and still gets the outs that he needs. And then of course most people have heard strikeouts per 9 innings, walks per 9 innings. That is all figured in. And defensive is actually where they really get into it. And you wouldn't think that normally you could get into advanced statistics defensively, but you get defensive runs saved. You get what they call an ultimate zone rating, and it compares and a hit, an out, an error to balls that are played in the past by the same player, and how better or worse the player did than the average player at making those kinds of plays. There's a range factor, and the range factor, this is where it gets really difficult, and it quantifies the defensive player's contribution. So, for example, the simplest form to calculate this would be, so a right fielder, right, his assists, which means how many guys he hits at, cut off many hits to record out, how many putouts he has, how many catches, and that's all divided by the games played. And it's all based on the notion that this total number of outs that a player participates in is relevant, and his defensive play, more so than the percentage of balls he handles cleanly as opposed to errors. Offensively, you have the same thing as kind of pitching. You have a couple of batting average for balls in play. Again, when you make contact, do you get hits or you get outs? It's great to make contact, but if you can make every time you make contact, it goes two ways. You want to make contact. Period. You don't want to strike out. Nobody likes striking out. But when you get hits, when you make contact, how often does that contact go, you know, and make a hit? OPS is a common one, which is on base plus slugging percentage. Um, and then your runs created, that goes from, how many hits, how many RBIs, stolen bases, etc. And you'd be surprised, actually, over the years, since 1977, baseball sabermetrics hasn't changed. Bill James' mathematical problems or solutions, it hasn't changed over the years. And he actually works did for a long period of time, working in the front office of the Boston Red Sox. And he won, obviously, here three World Series titles in 2004, 2008, and 2012. And, the system works. The fact that you can apply math to baseball and baseball statistics, it actually works. And you find this most common, and most people have seen the movie Moneyball. That was the first time it was actually introduced into the game of baseball when Billy Beane hired his then assistant. They had to replace Mark McGwire, Jose Canseco, and Johnny Damon. Well, instead of replacing how many home runs, you can replace other statistics as far as baseball sabermetrics goes and achieve the same result, if you will. They made the movie and the book about Moneyball. And obviously, Billy Beane has never gotten his World Series, but it allowed small market teams like the Oakland Athletics to compete in baseball. Anymore you see much more advanced scouting as far as sabermetrics. Joe Madden, who was just hired as the Cubs bench coach, manager, is a firm believer in sabermetrics, as well as Theo Epstein, who came from the Red Sox, and Bill James, of course. The problem I have with the movie Moneyball, though, is that it completely takes out the element of pitching, which on that staff you had Mark Mulder, Barry Zito, Tim Hudson, all who are, possible Hall of Fame candidates in their own right. Honestly, sabermetrics changed the game, and it changed the game for the better. You no longer have teams like the Yankees competing every year. Once sabermetrics was introduced, it allowed small market teams like the Royals, like the A's, like the Rays, to get a foothold in. If you want to get into it, the most recent team is the San Francisco Giants. They've won three World Series in the last 4 or 5, 6 years. So they're a perfect example of what good scouting and sabermetrics can do for you.